Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May is Foster Care Awareness Month. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about this topic and why it is important to me. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Service figures from 2019, there were 1,225 foster youth in our state, and of those, 278 were adopted, or just over 20%. While that may sound like a terrible rate, the fact is that reunification with family is usually the goal of foster care, and most kids in foster care are not available for adoption. Most parents who have children in foster care have not had their parental rights terminated. The hope is that the parents will be able to achieve a better and healthier environment for their children, and then the family can be reunited. Each child in foster care has a very individual and complex story. Whether our own personal feelings and opinions are about the foster care system in general, the reality is that it is a necessity for these children. It is a reality that cannot always be accurately predicted at the start of their life. A family that may start out looking stable on the outside may later need assistance being able to care for their children, and that may include foster care of some kind. Until we can eliminate the factors that go into parents being able to best care for their children, the foster care system is here to stay, despite all the strong emotions that come up whenever we hear of the mistreatment of children within the system. We have to get this right. We invest so much in our children, both personally and as a society, in funding their education and well-being, that it's bad fiscal sense to give up on any child. I once had dinner with the Swiss ambassador to the United States, and we discussed one of my favorite topics, vocational education in Switzerland versus vocational education in the United States, and societal attitudes surrounding all aspects of it. Yes, I happened to read a book about it before I happened to meet him. He told me that since they do not have any natural resources, except for tourism, to speak of, they consider their children to be their most precious natural resource, and that has always resonated with me. We cannot risk throwing people away or having them feel thrown away and unwanted. A child's worth and value is not and should not be dependent upon a few people who are able or unwilling to care for them or who simply don't want them, whether they are related by blood or not. When children feel unvalued, rejected, and thrown away, this creates dysfunction that reverberates all over our society and into the next generations. It's not just unhealthy, it's a sort of slow-motion societal suicide, and we simply cannot afford to treat people this way. There are many wonderful foster parents, and they are worthy of our utmost praise and respect, and I thank you to all who have become foster and adoptive parents for all the right reasons. I've met you, and some of you are with us in this great hall today. I have more, but we also have time, since we're waiting for the Senate. Under the best of circumstances, foster care is a sort of culture shock. It takes adjustment that can be hard when there is already a lot of baggage to bring to the new home, so to speak. When foster care doesn't work out for a child, if they feel unwanted or if they feel the providers are not in it for the right reasons, it's the end of the line. Where do you go after that? Trust is gone and it isn't coming back. You feel like all hope is gone. My social workers looked for a placement for me for months and months, but few people wanted teenagers. Teenagers have baggage, and I didn't have much at the time, literally and figuratively, just one black trash bag. As an aside, a friend suggested that since we are unaware of any flag that is used for foster care awareness, that a trash bag be used. Ouch, but it makes the point. All these years later, I'm still feeling pretty bad about this. I may be a big, important state representative now, which is a little bit of a joke, but this perceived earlier rejection by my entire community lingers, and I know my life would be different now had I had more confidence in myself early on. I'm sure someone would have wanted me if they knew me, and if they knew I was a nice kid, if they knew I had never been in trouble with the police, and that my teachers liked me, but none of that mattered at all. It felt like none of that mattered because before the world saw me as any of those good things, they saw me as a kid as a kid from a family with problems and an at-risk kid. And I'll be honest with you, there was rage, and there was anger, and there was extreme jealousy of the other kids who were simply born into people who wanted them and could care for them, or who chose them. I wish I could tell you I found a safe foster care placement, but I never did. I had wonderful social workers who were very kind and professional, and they did their best in impossible circumstances, and for that I am forever grateful. The placement I had was not safe, and I went from one nightmare to another, and I had to play a lot of insane games to have a safe place to live, and I was never really safe, but I had a door that I could barricade at night, and that was as good as it was going to get. At age 13, I saw that my home life was precarious, so I signed up to attend vocational high school and learn a trade so I could start taking care of myself as soon as possible. I am still in awe of how practical that was for a 13-year-old to do. Rents were very high. Labor laws prevented me from working enough hours running machines that I had already learned how to operate at school to pay the rent, so that plan never worked out for me. The state I then lived in protected me so much on one facet of life and not at all on another, more important one of helping me find a safe place to live. To say I felt thrown away is an understatement. It gets worse. If I had gone to live on the streets or under a bridge, and I did have a bridge I was considering, I would have been at very high risk for being trafficked sexually. Looking back, there were people that tried that scam on me, and I told them to do anatomically impossible things to themselves. A 2014 Department of Justice report estimated that 85% of girls involved in sex trafficking were previously involved in the child welfare system. 85%. The other terrible outcomes are measured in huge dropping percentages. Half of former foster youth are involved in the criminal justice system. About that same percentage graduate from high school. That number increases to 75% will not graduate from high school if they age out of the foster care system. Age out means that they stay in the foster care system until age 18 or when their state services end. Former foster youth are 7 times more likely to experience drug dependency. 50% of homeless people have spent time in foster care. Only between 3 and 10% of former foster youth ever graduate from college. I got my degree in 2014. I don't know what the suicide rates are for former foster youth, but I think that they are hard to determine with so many other factors like drug dependency and the abuse and neglect that first brings them into the system. I still get very sad when I think of parts of my childhood, and the sadness can be life-threatening for people, and I will be brutally honest with you here. I consider it like a sort of cancer that I must fight on an ongoing basis. I have people in my life who love me and they tell me I'm special. I found one of my old social workers. He runs a home for at-risk teens in this state. And he told me that I was his success story. Now, I refuse to believe that. And I reject that. And I reject that I'm special. And I reject that because I will not be his only success story. I want other kids in foster care today to know that they are going to do this too, and that they will be okay, and that they will be success stories, and they will grow up to have people who see them for who they are and the value they bring to the world. I have a right to exist. I have paid taxes for many decades, and I have far surpassed what was spent on me. I didn't abuse other people. I didn't commit any crimes. I didn't do anything horrible in my life. My friends, who also spent time in foster care, are amazing, wonderful people too. I worked a job making some of the world's most beautiful musical instruments, and I raised 2 wonderful children who are also valuable contributing members to society. But even if I didn't do those things, I still have a right to exist, and I have a right to life. There has been a recent reignition of a debate that I feel I should say something about as it pertains to this issue. The conditions that bring children into foster care cannot be solved by abortion. Because if they could have been, foster care would have gone away in 1973. Please don't assume that we are only experiencing the muted effects.
The member will suspend. For what reason does the member rise?
Thank you.
Member may continue.
Thank you. Please don't assume we are only experiencing the muted effects of social problems that would have been worsened by fewer abortions. I believe it's respect and value for individual lives that are the foundation for how we overcome the problems that lead to child neglect, child abuse, and substance abuse that bring so many children into the foster care system in the first place. I've had otherwise well-meaning people tell me I should never have been born because of the struggles I endured. Right in front of me, they argue that if it seems like a child may one day be in foster care, that the child should be aborted instead, and society will be better for it. Can you imagine saying such things to someone struggling because of their race or ethnic background or a developmental delay or other unchangeable factor of who they are? What if they belong to a group that tends to have a higher than average incarceration rates than other groups? Do we ever argue that they should never have been born at all? No. Because we rightly grant them a higher level of respect than to ever say that they should not have been born for those reasons. I ask that we please grant the same kindness and respect to future possible foster youth as well. So instead of saying the world would be better off without them, let's work together to more explicitly appreciate their inherent humanity and value them and make the world a better place for all of them in all the ways that we can. Thank you so much for your time and for listening to the end.